Hi, my name is Karen Fabian and I'm the founder of Bare Bones Yoga, and I'm here to do a video tutorial on how to do 3 poses that are related in yoga. And the poses are side angle, extended side angle, and side angle with a half bind. And so I'm going to walk you through a little bit about the anatomy, how to modify the postures, what's involved in the postures in terms of the muscles that we're impacting. And so this is just kind of a good overall review. It's part of my series of how to do, and so if you look on my YouTube channel, you'll see some other recent videos about how to do other poses. And I welcome you to comment on the video below and let me know if there are different poses you'd like to have broken down like this. So let's come into downward dog first, because that's where we're going to come into this posture from. So coming into side angle, a nice way to do it is to come into it from Warrior Two, okay? And so Warrior Two is a pose that has a fairly narrow base, meaning that the feet are not hip width apart. We're pretty much in this heel to heel alignment. So the joints are very stacked, the shoulders over hips, and not so much the hips over heels, but the body has this very kind of aligned position. So as we're in Warrior Two, to come into side angle, we're going to bring one arm down to the thigh and one arm up to the sky. Now, right out of the gate, let me share that there is another variation where we can have a block or the hand on the ground behind the leg, like this. Now, sometimes, or you may be watching it thinking, well, why wouldn't you put the block here? Well, one of the things that this kind of brings up is, what's the point of this pose with respect to this shoulder? So let me take a moment to share with you what that is. So in this position here, as we have that one arm down, we're trying to externally rotate the shoulder. And when we externally rotate the shoulder, we begin to lengthen the muscles at the front of the shoulder. So these are muscles like the pec minor and the pec major and the subscapularis, which sits inside the shoulder blade itself. And all of those muscles are responsible for internal rotation of the shoulder. So when we do the opposite, when we externally rotate the shoulder, it stands to reason that we would be lengthening those muscles. Because if those 3 muscles were contracting, we would do the action that the muscles do, which is internally rotate. So when we externally rotate the shoulders, we stretch pec major, pec minor, and subscapularis, but we contract the muscles that externally rotate the shoulder. So these are muscles like your teres minor and your infraspinatus, and they live on the back of the body and connect the scapula to the humerus. So in order for us to get those muscles working so that these muscles can lengthen, we want to put ourselves in a position where we're easily able to externally rotate. And here, we're just not, right? Because we're leaning forward, we have a tendency now to internally rotate, but when we take the block behind the leg, it's a lot easier for us to get that external rotation rather than turn in, because we're slightly leaning back. Okay, so let's kind of carry forth from here. The other thing to note is you can use more block. So if you find that there's a lot of tightness in these muscles, having more height off the ground can be really helpful for creating length in those 3 muscles I spoke about earlier, okay? The other thing to notice is this hip is in external rotation, while this hip is in internal rotation. So now we're talking about another ball and socket joint, just like the shoulder, the hip. And if we externally rotate the hip, we're contracting muscles, again, in the back of the body that are responsible for external rotation. And these are, in many cases, or generally, muscles that begin on the pelvis and end on the femur. Just like the other muscles with regard to the shoulder, begin on the scapula and end on the humerus. So a big external rotator of the hip is the piriformis. And if you've ever had sciatica, you probably know about the piriformis, because your sciatic nerve runs through it, and when that muscle gets irritated, put some pressure on the nerve and create some of that tingling and uncomfortable feeling down the leg. But again, just to keep in mind, anatomically speaking, this hip is in external rotation. This hip is turning in. So as we internally rotate, we start to use muscles like the glute medius, which resides on the outer hip, and also the IT band and the tensor fasciae lata, which are on the outer hip as well, to turn that hip in, this one, using muscles like the piriformis and the gemelli muscles, which are external rotators, to roll this hip open, right? We already talked about the internal rotators are lengthening, the external rotators of the shoulder are strengthening or contracting. So that's kind of anatomically and muscularly what's happening. In terms of the alignment or the shape of the pose, keeping the knee stacked over the heel, keeping the knee moving straight ahead, rolling this upper shoulder open, this top arm to the sky. Okay? We've got our heels on a line, very strong back leg. If we want to take the extended variation, we can reach the arm over the head, right? So there's your external, your extended. Now this is another shape where it's really easy to start to roll inward. So sometimes I like to cue folks to actually lean a little bit back and roll open from the right side. So now we're getting into core muscles that are responsible for twisting, that are on the sides of the body. So muscles like the obliques that create some of that rotation through the side body, internal and external obliques. Now, if I want to take the next variation, right, so this is extended, this is side angle, extended side angle, I can take the external rotation of the shoulder further by bringing the hand behind the back. So now I'm really asking for a lot of opening through this shoulder. And if you are one of those folks who like to take it even further, you might take a bind like this. But as soon as you try to connect the hands, if these muscles are short, you're going to be pulled towards the ground. And then, you're really kind of missing the benefit of the pose with respect to this upper shoulder. So this is where you could use a strap to give yourself a little extra length, right? So as I come from here and back, I can grab the strap underneath, and now I can use the strap to create a little more external rotation through the shoulder that I can't get if I'm particularly tight up here and I try to clasp the hands under there, okay? And remember, we're trying to open the shoulder. We're not trying to wrench the neck. So if you find yourself here, but overly rotating through the cervical spine, you can even set your gaze down and then just focus on moving open from the shoulder. And then eventually move the head so that the gaze is up. Or you could even just keep the gaze down the whole time. One of the other important points is to keep the knee over the heel. The further forward the knee goes, sometimes there's a little pressure on the knee because the patellar tendon, which is the convergence of all the quadricep muscles, ends on the knee. The other thing to watch for is swinging the hip out. So we want to direct the tailbone, or really the sitting bone, which is this part of the pelvis, towards the back heel. So we're turning this way, not this way, right? So as with any posture that has a couple of different variations, start with the first general shape. Get the alignment, get comfortable, get a sense of, comfort in the pose, and then add on. Because guaranteed, if you're in the first stage of the posture, right, like this, but you're not steady, it's only going to get compounded once you start to move into the other variations of the pose. And remember, it doesn't matter how deep you go into the posture. What's more important is that you start to create the important actions so that you can benefit from the pose. So here, we're obviously creating a lot of length through this back leg. We're creating some strength in the external rotators here and some length in the internal rotators here. We're doing some really good work to open the upper shoulder, and then when we do the other side, that shoulder gets the same love. So that's really important to help us counteract the effect of hunching all day. So again, it doesn't matter how deep you go into the posture. If you don't want to take those advanced, or I don't want to say advanced, if you don't want to take those variations, especially that last one, don't do it. Just keep your hand on the block, use height off the floor to create more length and more rotation through that upper shoulder, And you know, if you're breathing comfortably, you'll know that you're pretty much in the right place. Okay, so it's a lot of information. What I can share as well is that as you are going through, you know, videos like this, if you're looking for more information on the anatomy of yoga, visit my website, barebonesyoga.com. Right on the homepage, you're going to see a download about yoga anatomy that you can grab for free. If you're a yoga teacher and you want some help building poses like this into your sequence, you can grab my sequencing template, which is also on the homepage, and we'll walk you through how to build a yoga sequence in an easy to follow template. My webinar also has my books, my online courses, which all focus on the anatomy of yoga, as well as my online classes, which you can download for $10 a piece. Just go to the online classes page. Of course, comment below any questions about this, poses you'd like to see broken down in future videos. I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email with any questions you have. The website is barebonesyoga.com, and thank you so much for watching. Namaste.